Good day, students. Welcome to our second semester. So the first lesson for the semester, we will be talking about XML. All right? XML. I know it sounds almost familiar to HTML. All right? Although they are both markup language, they are however different. And that's what we are going to find out in this lesson. Okay? So without wasting any time, let's start by understanding exactly what XML is all about. So XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. Extensible Markup Language. That's what XML stands for. Okay, so XML is a software independent tool. So it's a tool that is mainly used for carrying information or data. So mainly, the main purpose of XML is mainly to store and to transport data. Okay, so that is the main purpose of XML, to store and to transport data, and that's all. It has nothing to do with displaying data or information. No, the only thing that it does is just store and transport data either from one machine to another machine. Okay, so it says XML is a markup language much like HTML. This is what we said from the beginning. XML and HTML, they are all markup language. You see this ML, markup language, markup language. However, they are different. XML is used for transporting or storing data or information, while HTML is used for displaying data. That is the difference between the two. But we will know more on the different side as we move on with the lesson. So XML was designed to describe data, not to display data, just like we said. What HTML is the one that displays data, but XML does not display data. It just store and transport data. All right. Now, when it comes to XML, you must define your own tags. In XML, you define your own tags. All right. The author, yourself, you are the one who's responsible for defining your own text. So let me just quickly define that point, what we meant by that. Let me open a notepad. Okay. So it's saying that with XML, you define your own text. I believe you all know which text we are talking about. All right. Like, you know that B in HTML, the B tag is for bold. You know that the BR tag is for break. All right. You know that the UL tag is for unordered list. All right. And so on. Okay. Now, when it comes to XML, XML does not have tags like HTML has. Okay. XML does not have these tags like HTML has. Okay. With XML, you will have to define your own tag. All right. Like, for example, if I want to store names of employees, how am I going to come up with my own tags? I'll name my own tag. I'll name it as name. That's my tag for storing the name of an employee. Okay, the name will probably be Bella, and then I close the name tag. Okay, so you now realize that I came up with my own tag. But in HTML, there's nothing like that. If you want to bold, you just need to make use of B. All right. If you want to break in HTML, you just need to make use of BR. There's no any other tag. But when it comes to XML, you create your own tag. Okay? I hope they're all clear there. Let's continue. Okay. Now, XML is not a replacement of HTML. All right? I hope this one is clear. XML is not a replacement of HTML. Although they are both markup languages, they are all different. Okay? This one stores and transports data, and this one is used to display data. You see the difference? They are both markup languages, but they are different. So XML and HTML were designed with different goals. So that's what we're just talking about. XML was designed to describe data, with focus on what data is, while HTML was designed to display data with focus on how data will look like on a website. That you all know. When you're designing a website, you use HTML. Okay, as you put in the code, the text, and once you run that website, you'll see how it will look like, the colors, the images, and everything else. But when it comes to XML, XML does not do anything. Its main purpose is just to store data, and that's it. Okay, so HTML is about displaying information, while XML is about carrying information or transporting information or storing information. Okay, what is XML used for? All right, so you might ask yourself, okay, fine, we're talking about XML, but what is it exactly used for? Okay, so XML is one of the most widely used formats for sharing data, okay, or information. All right, you can use XML to share information between programs, between different programs. Okay, you can store your information in the format of XML and share it in another different program, or between people. Okay, like maybe different programmers. Okay, I can share my information using the XML format and sending it to another person, or between computers and people, both locally and across the network. Okay, so that's what it's mostly used for. And then another thing is that XML simplifies data transport. Okay, one of the most consuming challenges for developers, you and I as developers, is to exchange data between incompatible systems over the internet. If there's two systems that are not compatible to one another, all right, and you want to probably move data or transport data from one system to that new system. However, those two are not compatible, you can actually use XML to transport or to transfer that data. Okay, exchanging data as XML greatly, it reduces this complexity. So it also reduces the complexity of data. No matter how large is your data or information, it can be reduced by XML. Okay, since the data can be read by different incompatible applications. Okay, so what it means here is just what we have said. So when you're exchanging data as XML, all right, XML will reduce that complexity of that particular data. All right, okay. Another one is XML simplifies as platform changes. When you're upgrading to a new system, for example, either you're upgrading from one certain hardware to another hardware, or maybe from a certain software platform to another software platform, it's always time consuming, correct? Because large amount of data must be converted, all right, and incompatible data is often lost. Yeah, this word, guys. That word. Let me just quickly get my charger. Okay. Incompatible. I know. You need to say it very slowly. Well, let's move forward. So XML data is stored in text format. This makes it easier to expand or to upgrade to a new operating systems, new application, or new browsers without losing data. All right. So XML is a certain platform that is mainly used by many developers. Okay. Also, XML makes your data more available. With XML, your data can be available to all kinds of reading machines. Okay, you know that sometimes there are certain machines that are not compatible with what you might want to change or with what you might want to share and so on. But when you use the XML, when you use XML, your data can be available to all these sort of machines. Okay, that can be a handheld computer, voice machines, new feeds, and so on. Okay, so how do you store data or transport data using XML? All right, what platforms do you use? All right, you use the following editors. The editors that you will mostly use when you are developing a website or when you are using HTML is the same editors that you use when you are using XML. Nothing changes. You can use EditX, you can use Edit Plus, you can use Notepad++, you can use UE, you can use brackets, you can use Coffee Cup, you can use whatever editor that you can possibly think of. All right. So nothing changes. You can use the same editor that you use for HTML when you're developing a website. Okay, now let's look at the difference between XML and HTML. Okay, let's look at their differences. Number one, XML, just like we said, it stands for Extensible Markup Language. I know it starts with an X, right? But this is how it's written. Extensible Markup Language. While HTML is a hypertext markup language. All right? Now, what is the purpose of XML again? XML is mainly used to store or to transport data. Okay, or it describes the data. While with HTML, it mainly looks at how data looks like. All right, its main purpose is mainly to display data. Okay, XML focuses on what data is about. HTML focuses on what data looks like. XML main purpose is to describe the data, to store the data, or to transport the data, while HTML is to display the data. The text, when it comes to the text when you're coding with XML, is user defined, meaning that you can create your own tags. Okay, XML is user defined, meaning you can create your own text. You can come up with your own text, while HTML is predefined. There's no way that you can come up with your own text because they are already text within HTML. Okay, when it comes to data storage, all right, XML stores the data in a separate XML file, while HTML stores the data in the text. Okay, case sensitive with XML, yes, it's case sensitive. With HTML, no, it's not case sensitive. Let me just try to explain this difference here. Okay, so with HTML, even if you, let me say that, yeah, let's say that you're using which tag? Body, all right? So you open your body with lower cases and you close your body with upper cases like that. It will still work. You remember you opened your text with open cases, small letters, and you close it with upper cases, big letters. It will still work. It will not give you an error. But when it comes to XML, let me say that I created my tag, same name. If I open my tag with small letters and then I close it with capital letters, it's not going to work because it's case sensitive. If I used small letters for opening my tag, I should still use small letters for closing the name tag. If I use upper cases like capital letters to open my tag, I should still use capital letters to close it. So it should always look the same. But if it looks different like this, it will definitely give you an error. So that's why we say it's case sensitive. Okay, let's move on. Extension wise, XML, you use the .xml. So this is how you save your files. Remember when you're saving your HTML file, you save it as .html or .htm. But when you're saving XML, the extension is .xml. Let me also try to explain that. For example, when you're saving a CSS file, you say index. Just an example, .css. That's the extension of CSS. When you are saving an HTML file, all right, so let's say it's index, you save it as .html, or you say index.htm, it will still work. But when you are saving an XML file, let's say that it's index, you save it as index.xml, all right? So these are the extensions. These are all different extensions. If you are being asked what is the extension of CSS, you should always say .css. Always make sure that you start with a dot. .css, .html, .xml, .htm, all right, .php. Okay, I hope you're getting me on that one. Okay, so let's continue. All right. XML syntax rules. So somebody might say, but ma'am, what are the rules of me coming up with my own tags in XML? All right, so let's look at the XML syntax rule. The syntax rules of XML are very simple and logical. The rules are easy to learn and easy to use. All right, so one of the rules is that all XML elements must have a closing tag. So this you already know. Every opening tag should have a closing tag in XML. That is a must. Okay, if you only have an opening tag and you do not close it, it will give you an error. So rule number 1 is make sure that all your XML elements must have an opening tag as well as a closing tag. That is a must. Number 2, in XML, it is illegal to omit the closing tag. All elements must have a closing tag. So that is like the first point, okay? Number 3, XML tags are case sensitive. This we have explained that. If you are using lower cases, make sure that you just use lower cases. If you are using upper cases, make sure that you just use upper cases. If you are starting one letter with a capital letter in an opening tag, make sure that you also start with a capital letter in a closing tag. So that's how it is, okay? Opening and closing tags must be written with the same case. So this is just similar to case sensitive that we just spoke about. This is another example here. This is message, all right? And then you see here, message with a small letter. So this is wrong. This is incorrect. So you see message, they are all small letters here. Now this is correct, okay? All right, so let's move forward. XML documents form a tree structure. Okay, how do you store or how do you code in XML? So this is the tree structure that you need to follow. The XML document must contain a root element. Okay, a root element is like HTML. Like let me say when you are coding in HTML. Your syntax in HTML is as follows. You start with HTML. That's what you start with, correct? You start with HTML. Okay. All right. And the most important one, next one, you also have body. Just an example. Body. Obviously, make sure that they're all close, right? Let me just try to close that. Okay. Then I close body. And then I close HTML. All right, so this is a syntax. You already know that you always need to start with HTML. All right, HTML followed probably by the head. All right, and so on, and then body and all that. So you know exactly how you're supposed to code in HTML. Now, when it comes to CSS, okay, the document should contain a root element. This root element here. So let me just copy this and put it in our notepad for me to explain it very well. So in HTML is as follows. Let me just write it down. You first need to have a root element. Okay. Obviously, this root element should close. Then you close it right there. Okay. Now the root element, inside the root element, you find a child as well as the subchild. Okay. Inside the root element, you find a child. Okay. And then you close the child. And inside the child, you find a subchild. And then you close the subchild. So this is how you're supposed to code. So you have your root element, which is similar, like let me say this is your parents, okay? And then you as the child, and then your kids, okay? So this is how it looks like when you're coding in HTML. All right. Let me say that, for example, that you are being asked, can you please store data of all employees in Chaffan College? Let me say we have 4 employees. Okay, no, let's say we have 2 employees for now. Store their information, please, and send it to me. Let me say each employee has a name, they have an age, they have a salary, right? And then what else do they have? Let me just say, for example, and maybe the ID. All right. These are all the information of the employees. Now, when you are saving it, this is how you save it. Okay. You are saving the names of the employees. So your root element will be, remember, you are coming up with your own text. So make sure that when you come up with your name, with your own text, they should make sense. All right. They should really, really make sense. So I'm actually storing employees information right now. So that will be my root element, employee, like that. And then inside the employee, we have the first employee, which is name. All right, name. And then I'll put Elizabeth. Okay. And then I'll close name. All right. The second one, I'll write down salary. Salary. Okay. Okay. And then let me say it's 100. And then I'll close the salary. Okay. Maybe let's use this. Let's use our editor just for you to see. Okay. Obviously, please, rule number 1, always create a folder and then you save in your work. Okay. Due to time, I might not create the folder for now. I'll just save it on my desktop. But for you guys, make sure that when you are working on a new project, always make sure that you create a folder. Okay, so I'm going to name this, I'm going to name it, what can we name it? Let's name it index, okay? Index and dot, what's our extension? XML. And then save. Perfect. So they say we should store the information of our employees, right? So this is what we're going to do. Okay, so employees is my root. Employees. You see here, it's already closing. That's why I like to use these editors like this. And then we have name. Name, that's the first one. You see, it will close the name for me. So then the first employee is, let's say it's Bella. And then the salary. Oops. We add the salary now. The salary is probably 100. And then what else is there? We have the age. Maybe put 20. Okay. And there we have it. All right. And then we have another employee again. Name. Okay, let's say this one is Thomas. You see, they are all inside employee. And then salary. Okay. Salary. This one maybe it's getting 200. And then age. So this one is 25. All right. As you can see here, I've created, okay? I have created my information, or I have stored information of the 2 employees. Okay, of the 2 employees that we just recorded now. Okay, so that's it in XML. That's it. And if you happen to run this file on your web browser, let's do that. This is how it will appear. Where is it? We saved it here. It should be index. Here it is. So let's try to run it with our web browser. Okay. Let's say open with another app. Okay. More apps, please. Okay, let's try to run it with Internet Explorer. Okay. Okay, let's just see how it will look like. So that's it you do in XML. There's nothing about stressing. You just read the scenario very well. You come up with your own tags. You save the information, and that's it. All right. So it's still loading. Let's see how it will appear. Remember when we were giving the differences between HTML and XML? One of the difference we say that with XML does not display data. Okay, what's happening now here? Choose your homepage search engine, your current, okay, done. Use recommended security. Okay, so it's my first time actually using Explorer. Okay, I usually use Google Chrome. Okay, guys, I don't want that. I just want you guys to open for me this. Okay, let's try. Okay, so it's still loading. Okay, so we want to see exactly how it will look like. So that's what we want to do. Okay, so let's see if it's done. No, guys, this is not what we want to see right now. Okay, still taking me back here. Close all tabs. Okay, close all tabs. We saved it on our desktop. Yep. So let's see. Yeah, because this is index.xml. Yeah, being a developer, you always need to make sure that you find ways because okay. Say more apps, please. PC. Desktop. Say Google Chrome. Okay, let's see. Okay, this XML file does not appear to have any style information associated with it. The document tree is shown below. Okay, where is it? Okay, so we go back. All right, did we save this though? The changes? Yeah, because you need to make sure that you save the changes every time. File, save. Okay, let's go back to our browser. Let's refresh. There we go. All right, so just look at that. That's it. That's all about XML. So it's not displaying anything. However, it's just storing. So if you click here, this is how the information is. So if you want to send it to another developer or software engineer, you just send the XML file the way it is, and then they'll open it. You see, this is, oh my God, look how I spelled employees. Oh my word. All right. So you just click there and you see that we have names here, salaries and all that. So we have 2 employees here. Okay, so that's exactly it about XML. All right. However, you guys will learn more again as we try to separate different names and so on. Okay, so let's continue because I don't want it to be long today. So you have your root, you have your child, you have your subchild. Okay, now let's continue. This we just spoke about. With XML, you invent your own text that we have spoken already. The text in the example above, like to and from, are not defined in any XML standard. What they're trying to tell you is that, just an example, if you get like, they say, can you send this message to another developer or to another, just an example, and you are using to and from. Okay, these are not defined text. These are not defined in any XML standard. This is the author that came up with this name, with this text. Like it says, these texts are invented by the author of the XML document. That is because the XML language has no predefined text. It has nothing about just use B for bolding, use U for underlining, use, no. You come up with your own text. Okay? That is because the XML language has no predefined text. The text used in HTML are predefined. HTML documents can only use text defined in an HTML standard, like P for paragraph. You just know that P in HTML is for paragraph. H1 is in HTML, you just know that it's for heading 1. Okay, XML allows the author to define his or her own text and his or her own document structure. So this we have spoken about already. Okay, the naming rule, we spoke about it already. The best naming practices, this is just to how can you name your text, just the best way. Create descriptive names. Okay, meaning that the moment you actually name a tag, it should give an idea of what it is about. Like person, when you see a person, you already know that we are referring to a certain person. When you see first name tag, you know that it's a first name tag of a person. When you see last name tag, you know already that it's the last name of a person. So make sure that when you are coming up with your own text, when you are inventing your own text in XML, they should be descriptive. Okay? Create short and simple names like book title. This is very short. Not long names like the title of the book. So you should avoid having long names. Okay? So by the way, there's no space within a tag. If you want to have a space, always use an underscore. Like here you can see it's book title. You put an underscore. If you put book and space and title, it will not run. It will be wrong. All right? So space within a tag is defined by an underscore. Okay, I hope that's clear. So these points mainly just say, please make sure that you come up with short names but not longer names as something like this. No. Avoid having these quotation marks. If you name something like first name with the 2 quotation, some software may think you want to subtract name from first name. All right. Some software will think like that. So you should try to avoid having quotation and then this dash right there. Okay, so avoid as well quotation and the full stop. If you name something like quotation marks, first name, dot name, some software may think that name is a property of the object first. They might think name is a property of the same of the object first. All right, so what they're trying to tell you here, just try to avoid having this quotation dash and the full stops and so on when you are naming your own tags. Okay, so naming styles, lower cases, make sure that you can use lower cases, you can use upper cases, you can use underscore, you can use Pascal case, you can use camel case. What they mean, lowercase, all letters can be lower cases, like they're all small letters. Upper cases, you can name it as all capital letters. Underscore, you can use an underscore within your namings. Okay, remember we said this one actually separates the 2 words. It's like a space. Or either you can use Pascal case. Pascal case is when you start with the first capital letter here first, and then the next capital letter is on another word. Okay, so uppercase first letter in each word. And then camel case is maybe you want to start with a small letter only, and then you have one capital letter in the middle, or so on. So that's like a camel case. So you can use all these styles when you're coming up with your own text in XML. Okay, so if you choose a naming style, it is good to be consistent. For example, for me, I like to use lower cases, and that's it. Throughout my naming, I'll only use the lowercase style. So that's all up to you what you want to use. So how do you comment in XML? So the syntax for writing comments in XML is similar to that of HTML. So you all know this. So this is how you write a comment inside XML, which is almost the same as HTML. Okay, so what is an XML element? So an XML element is everything from including the elements that tag to including the elements in tag. Okay, so an element can contain other elements, meaning other elements can be within an element. Okay, remember, an XML element is everything from including the elements that tag to including the element and tag. So that's what we call an element. It can be text, it can be attributes, or it can be a mix of all the above: element, text, and attributes. That's what makes up an XML element. XML attributes, XML elements have attributes, just like in HTML where you have attributes. So attributes provide additional information about an element. Okay, that's what they do. For example, let me say you have a book and the name of the book is maybe ABC. So you have a tag as name and an attribute of probably the name of that book, which is ABC. Okay. XML attribute must be quoted. Okay, so the attributes must be quoted. So that's a must when you are actually adding attributes. So the attribute values must always be quoted, either single or double quotes. You can either use a single quote or a double quote can be used. For a person's gender, the person element can be written like this. For example, you can have person as your own tag, and then you add an attribute. This is your attribute here. Gender. The gender of this person is female. Or like this: person, gender, female. You can either use double quote or a single quote. Okay. Okay, so this is just some examples of elements versus attributes. Okay, so you have person, gender, female, first name Anna, last name Smith, and you close person. You go to another person, gender, or you can actually write it gender, female. But sometimes, obviously, it might take long. You wouldn't want to write it this way. I'll prefer writing it this way, having your element and the attribute together. So you can say these are two examples. This person has person, and the attribute gender, female. Then first name, last name, and then you close the root element, which is person. With this one, they have the root element, which is person. They have gender, they have first name. So you see they separated everything. Okay, but it's all up to you on how you want it to be like. So in the first example, gender is an attribute. In the last, gender is an element. So that's an example. So if you use this, gender becomes an attribute, but if you only use the normal one, gender is just an element like any other elements there. Okay, both example provides the same information, however, so it's all up to you to see how you want to style it. So there are no rules about when to use attributes or when to use elements. Attributes are handy in HTML only, but in XML, my advice is to avoid using them if you are not sure of how you want them to be. Okay, so just use elements instead. Okay, so I think today we will end there because I wouldn't want the video to be long. So in our next lesson, we will start from here, from the examples. For now, I want you guys to just understand what XML is all about, the naming rules, how it is written, and so on. Okay, so I will see you guys in the next lesson. Just make sure that you understand, and if you have any question, please make sure that you ask in the chat below. Thank you.